Alexander, a name synonymous with power and unparalleled wealth, navigated his existence within a golden cage of his own making. At just 32, his empire stretched across continents, a testament to a mind honed by relentless ambition and an almost predatory instinct for opportunity. Yet, for all the gleaming towers and whispered accolades, his life was a stark, echoing chamber of isolation. His penthouse, a glass eyrie perched atop the city's tallest skyscraper, offered a panoramic view that few could ever dream of. But within its minimalist grandeur, Alexander was utterly alone. His days were a rigid procession of meetings, each one a battle of wits and wills where he emerged victorious, often leaving a trail of vanquished competitors in his wake. His relationships, if they could even be called that, were purely transactional. Every handshake, every dinner, every seemingly casual conversation was meticulously calculated, weighed for its potential to advance his formidable agenda. There was no room for sentiment, no space for genuine connection. A brief, unsettling memory sometimes flickered at the edges of his consciousness. A shadow of betrayal from a past he preferred to keep buried, a wound that had long since scarred over, leaving behind a cold, unyielding resolve. It was this memory, this deep-seated distrust that fueled his ruthless business practices, allowing him to expand his empire without a flicker of empathy for those he outmaneuvered. The constant pressure from his board, a collection of seasoned sharks who both admired and feared him, and the ever-present threat of rivals nipping at his heels, only reinforced his belief that vulnerability was a weakness he could ill afford. His face, often described as chiseled and handsome, rarely betrayed emotion, a mask of impenetrable calm that kept the world at bay. He moved through his opulent, yet empty, penthouse like a phantom, the hushed silence amplifying his solitude. The expensive artwork on the walls, the bespoke furniture, the state-of-the-art technology, all were curated symbols of success, yet they offered no solace, no warmth. His daily routine was a relentless cycle of conquering markets, strategizing mergers, and fending off corporate espionage. There was a flicker, a brief, almost imperceptible tremor in his internal monologue sometimes, a yearning for something more, a whisper of connection. But it was always immediately suppressed, deemed an indulgence he could not afford. Tonight, however, presented a necessary deviation from his meticulously structured life. He was scheduled to attend a charity gala, an event he reluctantly funded, seeing it as nothing more than a strategic maneuver for public image. Genuine compassion was a foreign concept to him, a luxury for those who could afford to be soft. He saw the gala as a stage, a performance he was obligated to enact, a brief foray into a world he didn't truly understand or desire. As his chauffeur-driven limousine glided through the city streets, Alexander glanced out the tinted window. A family was laughing on a park bench, their joy echoing even through the soundproof glass. For a fleeting instant, a pang, almost imperceptible, touched him. It was a moment of vulnerability, quickly extinguished, replaced by the familiar armor of his cynicism. Upon his arrival at the grand ballroom, the announcement of his name reverberated through the opulent space, met with a predictable mix of awe and thinly veiled fear. Heads turned, conversations hushed, and a path seemed to clear before him as if by invisible force. His bodyguards, a formidable wall of muscle and unwavering loyalty, moved ahead, creating an impenetrable barrier around him, insulating him from the curious stares and the sycophantic smiles. The stark contrast between his world, a realm of calculated moves and strategic alliances, and the world he was about to briefly enter, a superficial display of philanthropy, was palpable. He felt the underlying tension of his guarded existence, a constant hum beneath his polished exterior. Every step was measured, every glance controlled. His carefully constructed world, a fortress against emotional intrusion, felt solid, unyielding. Yet, as he took another step into the brightly lit hall, a subtle sense of unease, a feeling that his meticulously built defenses were about to be disrupted, stirred within him. He was unaware that the very fabric of his isolated existence was poised for an unexpected, profound shift. In the bustling kitchen of the very same gala, a young woman named Lily, moved with a grace born of necessity and constant motion. Her hands, though small, were adept at balancing trays laden with delicate appetizers, her movements efficient and practiced. Lily was a server, one of the many unsung heroes behind the dazzling facade of such opulent events. Her background was one of unrelenting struggle, a stark contrast to the glittering world she now navigated, yet her spirit remained untarnished. Poverty had etched lines of worry around her eyes, but it had also forged within her an indomitable resilience, a quiet strength that shone through her tired smile. Her primary motivation, the very core of her enduring optimism, was her younger sister Clara, whose fragile health demanded every ounce of Lily's energy and every penny she could earn. A brief moment of reprieve found Lily ducking into a quiet corner, pulling out her well-worn phone. Her thumb hovered over Clara's contact, a soft smile gracing her lips as she listened to the familiar ring. "Hey, sweet pea," she whispered, her voice softening instantly. "Just checking in. How are you feeling tonight? Did you take your medicine?" The concern in her eyes was palpable, a testament to the profound bond they shared. Clara's faint, reassuring voice on the other end was enough to rekindle the hopeful spark within Lily, reminding her why she pushed herself so hard. Every extra hour, every additional shift, every smile she offered to a demanding guest was a small victory in her personal battle against her sister's recurring illness. As she re-entered the main ballroom, the sheer opulence of the surroundings struck her anew. Crystal chandeliers dripped diamonds of light, reflecting off polished marble floors and the shimmering silks of expensive gowns. It was a world so impossibly distant from her cramped apartment, from the constant worry of medical bills and the gnawing fear of the future. Yet, she didn't harbor resentment. Instead, she viewed it with a kind of detached fascination, a spectacle she was privileged to witness, even if only from the periphery. Her focus remained steadfast: do an excellent job, earn those crucial extra tips, and secure another day of comfort for Clara. The night wore on, a flurry of activity and hushed conversations. Suddenly, a minor disaster struck. A tray, jostled by a careless guest, tilted precariously, sending a cascade of champagne flutes crashing to the floor. The sharp sound momentarily pierced the elegant murmur of the gala. Lily, ever resourceful, quickly moved to mitigate the damage, her heart pounding with a mix of frustration and the ever-present fear of losing out on a tip. A difficult guest, already demanding throughout the evening, chose that precise moment to summon her with an imperious wave, adding another layer of pressure to her already strained nerves. It was in this moment of heightened stress that her friend, Maria, a fellow server, hurried over, her eyes wide. "Lily, go to table 5 near the main stage," Maria whispered urgently, pointing with a subtle nod. "The one in the dark suit, slightly apart from the others. He's a big shot, known for being incredibly generous. Make sure he's well looked after. It could mean big money for us tonight." Lily, her mind still reeling from the champagne spill and the difficult guest, barely registered Maria's precise description. Her eyes scanned the room, landing on a figure, tall and imposing, standing somewhat aloof from the main throng. He was indeed wearing a dark suit, and the aura of importance around him was unmistakable. Her mind, racing with thoughts of Clara's mounting medical bills, instantly connected this man with the generous big shot Maria had mentioned. She pictured him, not as Alexander, but as a kindly, benevolent patron who understood the value of hard work and deserved a special kind of attention. Taking a deep breath, Lily approached Alexander, a genuine, unscripted warmth radiating from her. Her smile was tired but sincere, a reflection of her hopeful outlook, despite her struggles. She imagined this man as a potential savior, and conduit to the funds that could bring her sister relief. Without thinking, without a moment of hesitation, she reached out, her small hands gently encircling his waist, pulling him into a soft, unexpected embrace. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice filled with a profound gratitude that had nothing to do with him specifically, but everything to do with her unwavering hope for Clara. Alexander, accustomed to a world where even a handshake was a calculated gesture, froze. His bodyguards, ever vigilant, took an immediate step forward, their eyes narrowing, their hands instinctively moving closer to their hidden earpieces. The opulent ballroom, moments before a symphony of hushed chatter, seemed to hold its breath. Lily, however, felt an immediate sickening lurch in her stomach. The stiff, unyielding posture of the man, the sudden tension in the air, the collective gasp she imagined rippling through the room. It all coalesced into a horrifying realization. This was not the kindly older gentleman known for his philanthropy. This was someone else entirely. Her eyes, wide with sudden terror, met his, and in that instant, the cold, distant gaze of Alexander, the millionaire, stared back at her. Her hands dropped as if burned, her face flushing crimson. "Oh my God!" she whispered, her voice barely audible, filled with genuine horror and profound embarrassment. I am so incredibly sorry. I made a terrible mistake. I thought you were someone else." The apology was raw, unfiltered, and utterly sincere. A stark contrast to the transactional world Alexander inhabited. For a fleeting moment, in the depth of her mortification, Alexander registered something unexpected. A flicker of something unknown, a strange, almost soft quality in his reaction, a momentary suspension of his usual impenetrable facade. Alexander's internal world, usually a meticulously ordered fortress of logic and strategic thought, was suddenly thrown into disarray. The unexpected contact, the soft warmth of her hands, the genuine tremor in her voice as she murmured her apology, it was a jolt, a disruption unlike any he had ever experienced. His bodyguards, ever-present shadows, had tensed, their trained instincts screaming danger. But a subtle, almost imperceptible gesture from Alexander held them back. He watched Lily, her face a canvas of mortification, her eyes wide with a fear that was as real as it was disarming. There was no artifice in her panic, no calculated maneuver in her desperate apologies. It was pure, unadulterated human embarrassment, a raw sincerity that cut through the polished veneer of the gala and, more importantly, through his own hardened defenses. He saw her fear, yes, but beneath it he also perceived an inherent kindness, a vulnerability that was startlingly unfamiliar in his carefully curated environment. A brief, almost imperceptible smile, a phenomenon so rare it bordered on mythical, played on his lips. It was a fleeting moment, gone before anyone else could register it. But it was there, a silent acknowledgement of the sheer absurdity and unexpected humanity of the situation. The cold, analytical part of his mind, the part that processed data and calculated risks, was momentarily silenced by an unfamiliar curiosity. "Your name?" he asked, his voice, usually a low, commanding rumble, softened almost imperceptibly. The question, simple as it was, felt profound in the hushed aftermath of the embrace. A bridge extended across the vast chasm separating their worlds. Lily, still flustered, her cheeks burning, stammered her reply. "Lily, my name is Lily. And again, Mr. I am truly, truly sorry. It was an honest mistake. I was told to look for someone and I clearly got it wrong." Her apology tumbled out, a cascade of genuine regret, her gaze darting around as if seeking an escape from the suffocating weight of her blunder. She braced herself for the reprimand, the harsh words, the inevitable dismissal that surely followed such an egregious error. But no scolding came, no demand for her immediate removal from the premises. Instead, Alexander simply observed her, his intense gaze unwavering. He found himself drawn to her unpretentious nature, her raw honesty. The usual cynicism that coated his perception of the world, a protective shell built over years of betrayals and disappointments, was momentarily suspended. He saw no ulterior motive in her actions, no hidden agenda in her mortification. Just a young woman, caught in a moment of genuine human error. "You work here often?" he inquired, his tone surprisingly devoid of judgment. It was a question he rarely posed to anyone, let alone a server at a charity event. His interactions were typically confined to boardrooms and exclusive clubs, conversations revolving around mergers and acquisitions, never the details of someone's honest labor. Lily, still nervous but slightly relieved by his unexpected mildness, nodded. "Only for special events like this, sir. I usually work at a small diner downtown. This pays a little extra, and— She paused, biting her lip, realizing she was about to share too much. Her sister, Clara, and her medical bills were a constant presence in her thoughts, a burden she carried with quiet determination. Alexander, however, caught the flicker of something in her eyes, a weariness combined with an indomitable spirit. He saw the subtle lines of worry etched around her determined gaze, the slight slump of her shoulders that spoke of long hours and heavy responsibilities. He didn't press, but his observation was keen, absorbing the unspoken story. There was a subtle shift in the atmosphere around him. His usual barrier, an invisible shield of wealth and power, seemed to lower by a fraction, allowing a sliver of the outside world to penetrate. He reached into the inner pocket of his bespoke suit, retrieving a crisp $100 bill. He extended it towards her, not with the air of a benefactor bestowing charity, but with a strange, almost impulsive gesture. "For your trouble," he stated, his voice now back to its usual controlled cadence, though still lacking its characteristic chill. It wasn't pity that drove the action. It was an unfamiliar impulse, a reaction to the raw, uncalculated humanity she had momentarily unveiled within him. Lily hesitated, her eyes widening at the unexpected generosity. It was far more than a typical tip, enough to make a significant difference to her and Clara. "Oh, sir, you really don't have to," she began, her pride warring with her desperate need. "Take it, Lily," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "Consider it. Compensation for my lack of social graces." A hint of irony, a rarity for him, laced his words. She took the bill, her fingers brushing his, a small electric current passing between them. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. She curtsied quickly, a practiced movement, and then, eager to escape the lingering awkwardness, she turned and hurried away, disappearing into the bustling crowd of guests. Alexander watched her go, a strange, persistent image of her flushed face and earnest eyes imprinted on his mind. The noise of the gala, the polite chatter, the clinking of glasses. It all seemed to recede, leaving him in a bubble of quiet contemplation. The incident was insignificant by any measure of his world, a mere blip in the relentless pursuit of power and profit. Yet, for reasons he couldn't articulate, he found himself thinking about the girl, Lily, long after she had vanished from his sight. Her genuine apology, her unpretentious nature, the flash of fear mixed with a quiet determination. It had all registered, disrupting the carefully constructed order of his existence. He found himself replaying the moment, analyzing it, not with the usual cold logic, but with an unfamiliar, almost unsettling warmth. The unfeeling millionaire had been touched, ever so slightly, by an unseen spark. Alexander's return to his opulent penthouse that night felt different. The familiar silence, usually a welcome solace from the cacophony of the world, now seemed to amplify an unfamiliar internal hum. He dismissed his security detail with a curt nod, the usual weight of his day's decisions and future strategies failing to settle upon him with their customary oppressive force. Instead, his mind kept replaying the brief, unexpected encounter with Lily. He saw her startled eyes, the flush on her cheeks, the way her hand had trembled slightly as she took the money. The memory of the hug, an invasion he should have found intolerable, instead left a strange, lingering ghost of warmth on his expensive suit. He found himself pacing the vast expanse of his living room, a space designed for grandeur, but rarely for comfort. The city lights twinkled below, an indifferent tapestry of human ambition, yet his gaze remained unfocused, drawn inward. He replayed her apology, her sincerity, her smile, a fleeting, almost imperceptible upturn of lips that had somehow lodged itself in his consciousness. His usual laser-like focus on impending deals and market fluctuations was noticeably disrupted. Business, for the first time in memory, felt secondary, a distant echo compared to the vivid imprint of Lily's presence. This persistent thought, this unexpected preoccupation was unsettling. It was an anomaly in his meticulously ordered world, a crack in the gilded cage he had built around himself. The next morning, Alexander made a request that surprised even his long-serving and unflappable assistant, Eleanor. "Eleanor," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion, yet carrying an undercurrent of unusual intent, I need you to find everything you can about a woman named Lily. She was a server at the charity gala last night. Discreetly, of course. Eleanor, a woman who had navigated Alexander's every ruthless whim for years, raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise crossing her usually impassive features. She was accustomed to requests for competitive intelligence, for detailed dossiers on rivals, for personal histories of potential business partners, never for a gala server. Yet she merely nodded, her professional facade unwavering. "Consider it done, Mr. Thorne," she replied, already formulating her strategy. Meanwhile, Lily, oblivious to the millionaire's quiet obsession, was experiencing her own small triumph. The crisp $100 bill clutched tightly in her hand represented not just money, but hope. Relief washed over her, a wave so potent it almost brought tears to her eyes. Yet, interwoven with the relief, was a thread of guilt. It felt like charity, a handout, something her proud spirit usually resisted. But then she thought of Clara, her little sister, frail and often in pain, and the guilt receded, replaced by fierce determination. She used the money immediately, purchasing the specific, often expensive medication Clara needed. Watching her sister's face light up with a flicker of genuine comfort, a moment of pure, unadulterated joy, was a reward far greater than any sum. Later that day, her friend and fellow server, Maria, teased her mercilessly. "So you actually hugged the Ice King, huh? And got a king's ransom for it?" Maria laughed, playfully nudging Lily. "Maybe you should make a habit of it, Lily. Could solve all our problems." Lily blushed, shaking her head. "It was a mistake, Maria, a terrible, embarrassing mistake." But even as she spoke, a small part of her couldn't deny the odd, almost kind look in Alexander's eyes. Eleanor delivered the background report on Lily within 48 hours. Alexander sat in his office, the meticulously compiled document spread across his polished mahogany desk. He scanned the pages, absorbing every detail. Her humble upbringing, her parents' early deaths, her unwavering dedication to Clara, her relentless work ethic, her struggles with medical bills. It was all laid bare. He saw the depth of her character, her profound selflessness, equality so alien to his own transactional world. He read about Clara's chronic illness, the doctor's visits, the mounting debt. A memory resurfaced, sharp and unbidden, like a shard of ice in his chest. His own sister Eleanor, a vibrant, artistic soul, lost to him years ago amidst a bitter family dispute, instigated by his father's manipulations and greed. The memory was a raw wound, a constant reminder of the emotional cost of his family's relentless pursuit of power. He had pushed it down, buried it under layers of ambition and cynicism, but Lily's story, her fierce protective love for her sister, had unexpectedly dislodged it. This connection, this shared experience of sibling love and loss, created a powerful, unexpected empathy within him. It was a feeling so foreign, so uncharacteristic that it startled him. He felt a desire to help, not as a transaction to gain an advantage, not as a calculated charity move for public image, but as a genuine, almost primal act of kindness. It was an impulse he hadn't experienced in decades, a stirring of humanity he thought long dead. The thought of Lily struggling, sacrificing everything for her sister, resonated deeply. He found himself subtly instructing his security team to monitor her, to ensure her safety, to know her routines. He didn't want to approach her directly, not yet. He wanted to understand, to observe. He began to subtly follow her movements, not invading her privacy, but observing her from a discreet distance. He saw her at the small diner where she worked, her smile bright even when her eyes showed fatigue. He saw her at the pharmacy, carefully counting out change. He saw her walking Clara to a doctor's appointment, her hand protectively clasped around her sister's smaller one. Each observation reinforced the report's findings, solidifying the image of a woman of immense strength and quiet dignity. Alexander, the man who trusted no one, the architect of a vast, impersonal empire, felt a stirring of connection, a desire for something genuine, a nascent longing to do something truly good. The spark, once unseen, was now beginning to glow. The glow, once nascent, now burned with a quiet intensity within Alexander. He had observed Lily for days, a silent, unseen guardian. Each sighting of her reinforced his growing conviction. This woman, so unlike anyone in his world, possessed a rare and genuine spirit. He watched her interact with strangers, a kind word for an elderly woman struggling with groceries, a patient smile for a demanding child. These small acts of unsolicited compassion resonated deeply, chipping away at the reinforced walls he had built around his heart. The time for passive observation was over. He needed a plan, an approach that wouldn't feel like an intrusion, but rather a natural convergence of paths. Alexander meticulously devised a strategy, a calculated approach to accidentally encounter Lily once more. He instructed Eleanor to schedule a series of meetings in the vicinity of Lily's diner, creating a legitimate reason for his presence in her world. His assistant, ever efficient, executed the directives without question, though a flicker of curiosity crossed her face at the unusual geographical clustering of his engagements. Alexander, however, offered no explanations, his gaze distant, already envisioning the next step. On the chosen day, Alexander arrived in his sleek black sedan, parking a discreet distance from the diner. He observed Lily through the tinted windows, watching her move with a practiced grace among the tables, her laughter, light and genuine, occasionally drifting out into the street. He noted the subtle weariness in her posture, the faint shadows beneath her eyes, a testament to her relentless dedication. Yet, her spirit remained undimmed, her interactions consistently marked by an authentic warmth. This reinforced his impression, solidifying his belief in her inherent goodness. He took a deep breath, the sterile, air-conditioned comfort of his car suddenly feeling suffocating. It was time. Stepping out, Alexander adjusted his impeccably tailored suit, the fabric rustling softly. He walked with his usual confident stride, a man of purpose, navigating a world that bent to his will. As he approached the diner, he saw Lily emerge, carrying a tray laden with empty dishes. Their eyes met across the bustling street, and for a fleeting moment, the noise of the city seemed to fade. Lily's eyes widened in surprise, a blush creeping up her neck. "Miss Lily!" Alexander's voice was smooth, controlled, yet held an unfamiliar softness. He offered a slight, almost imperceptible nod. "It seems our paths cross again." Lily, still flustered from their last encounter, stammered, "Mr. Alexander, what a surprise." She clutched the tray a little tighter, her mind racing. Was he here to complain about the gala? To demand something? He offered a small, reassuring smile, a rare sight that softened the sharp lines of his face. "I was in the area for a business meeting, and I recall you work here. I thought it might be an opportune moment to follow up on our last conversation regarding the charity gala." It was a flimsy pretense, and they both knew it, but it offered a polite veneer. Lily nodded, still wary but intrigued. "Oh yes, the gala. I hope everything was to your satisfaction, sir." "Indeed," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "And I recall you mentioned your sister, Clara, wasn't it?" The genuine concern in his tone was unmistakable, disarming Lily further. Her guard lowered slightly, touched by his memory and his unexpected interest. "Yes, Clara. She's doing okay, thank you for asking. The medication from the tip you gave really helped." A flicker of gratitude, mixed with a hint of embarrassment, crossed her face. Alexander's expression remained neutral, but inwardly a wave of satisfaction washed over him. He had piqued her interest, now for the next phase. "I've been considering a new initiative for the foundation," he began, weaving a narrative that sounded plausible within his philanthropic endeavors. "A program designed to support individuals with exceptional potential, particularly those facing challenging circumstances. It would involve a mentorship, a chance to learn the intricacies of my industry, and a generous stipend." He paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "I believe you possess a unique perspective, Miss Lily, one that could be invaluable." Lily's brow furrowed. She was wary of charity, fiercely independent, but the mention of her sister's needs, the generous stipend, resonated deeply. "A mentorship?" she questioned, skepticism lacing her voice. "What kind of industry? I'm just a server, Mr. Alexander." "My industry is vast, Miss Lily," he countered smoothly. and it requires keen observation, quick thinking, and an understanding of human nature. Qualities I've observed you possess in abundance. This isn't charity, not in the traditional sense. It's an opportunity, a professional favor, if you will, for someone I believe could truly benefit and, in turn, contribute significantly. He presented the offer in a way that preserved her dignity, framing it as an investment in her potential rather than a handout. He watched her closely, seeing the internal struggle etched on her face. The promise of helping Clara, of easing her burden, was a powerful motivator. After a moment of profound deliberation, her eyes fixed on his, searching for any hint of deceit, Lily finally nodded, a fragile hope blossoming within her. I accept, Mr. Alexander. For Clara, I'll do my best. A genuine, almost imperceptible smile touched Alexander's lips. He extended a hand, a gesture of professional accord. Excellent, Miss Lily. Eleanor will be in touch to arrange the details. I believe this will be a mutually beneficial arrangement. As their hands briefly clasped, a spark, different from the initial jolt, passed between them. Alexander felt a strange satisfaction, a sense of purpose beyond profit, a quiet triumph that resonated deeper than any business deal. He had brought her into his world, a world she knew nothing about, a world fraught with its own complexities. Lily, stepping into the gilded cage, remained blissfully unaware of his true motivations and the potential dangers that lurked within the shadows of Alexander's carefully constructed empire. Her journey, and his, had just begun. Lily soon found herself immersed in a world she had only ever glimpsed from the periphery. Her mentorship at Alexander's sprawling corporate headquarters was a dizzying kaleidoscope of polished steel, hushed conversations, and relentless activity. The sheer scale of the operation, the luxurious environment that seemed to hum with an undercurrent of immense wealth, overwhelmed her senses. Every morning, she stepped out of her modest apartment and into a chauffeured car, a surreal transition that left her feeling like a character in a dream. The demanding pace of Alexander's empire was a stark contrast to the familiar rhythm of her old life. Meetings flowed into more meetings, data streamed across screens, and decisions involving millions were made with an almost casual air. Alexander, true to his word, observed her closely. He assigned her to various departments, initially giving her tasks that seemed simple, almost mundane, but were designed to test her resilience and her ability to absorb information. He watched her navigate the complex corporate landscape, noting her initial struggles with the jargon and the sheer volume of new concepts. Yet he also saw her unwavering dedication, her quiet determination, and her surprisingly quick learning ability. She spent late nights poring over reports, asking insightful questions, and never shying away from a challenge, no matter how daunting. Her innate curiosity, a trait he found unexpectedly refreshing, propelled her forward. His colleagues and employees, a sophisticated and often cynical group, were predictably baffled by his sudden interest in this unassuming young woman. Whispers and rumors circulated through the pristine hallways like a digital virus. Who is she? Another one of Alexander's projects? Is she his new girlfriend? The speculation was rampant, fueled by Alexander's notoriously private nature and his almost monastic dedication to work. Lily, acutely aware of their scrutinizing gazes, felt the subtle prejudice and jealousy emanating from some of the more established employees. They saw her as an outsider, an anomaly, and her presence disrupted their carefully ordered hierarchy. She often overheard veiled comments, snide remarks about her background, or dismissive tones when she offered an idea. It was a constant battle to prove herself, not just to Alexander, but to an entire institution that seemed predisposed to doubt her. Despite the challenges, Lily never gave up. The thought of Clara, her sister's hopeful smile, was a constant anchor, a reminder of why she was here. She struggled, yes, but each struggle was a lesson learned. Each small victory, a testament to her growing confidence. Alexander, with a subtlety that belied his usual bluntness, found himself protecting her. He would often intervene in meetings, redirecting critical comments, or providing context that highlighted Lily's contributions. He subtly guided her, offering advice, correcting her missteps with a patience he rarely extended to anyone else. It was an unspoken alliance, a mentorship that transcended the professional. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the rigid walls Alexander had built around himself began to crumble, brick by meticulously placed brick. He found himself sharing personal stories, small glimpses into his past, anecdotes about his early business ventures, or even a rare, fleeting memory of his childhood. These revelations were not grand confessions, but rather quiet observations, offered during a late-night work session or a brief moment of respite between meetings. Lily, in turn, opened up about Clara, her sister's vibrant spirit despite her illness, her own hopes and dreams for a future free from worry. Their conversations became less transactional, less about business strategy, and more about the shared human experience. Alexander started to see the world through her eyes, a perspective so different from his own. He saw the simple joys she found in a perfectly brewed cup of coffee, the genuine concern she held for her colleagues, the unwavering love she had for her sister. It was a world of profound empathy, of deep connections, a stark contrast to the calculating, often sterile environment he inhabited. The world, through Lily's lens, seemed richer, more vibrant, filled with colors he had long forgotten or perhaps never truly perceived. One afternoon, amidst a particularly stressful week, Alexander did something entirely out of character. He invited Lily to a casual lunch, not in the opulent executive dining room, but at a small, unassuming cafe a few blocks away. It was a stark departure from his usual formal business dinners, a gesture that spoke volumes without a single word. As they sat across from each other, surrounded by the ordinary hustle and bustle of city life, Alexander found himself laughing, a genuine, unforced sound that surprised even himself. He realized, with a profound sense of revelation, that he was breaking down his emotional walls, feeling a connection he never thought possible. This woman, who had stumbled into his life with an accidental hug, was slowly, steadily, unlocking something within him that he had long believed to be lost forever. The future, once a predictable sequence of profit margins and power plays, now held an exhilarating, terrifying, and utterly captivating unknown. Their relationship deepened with each passing day, evolving into an unspoken bond that resonated deep within Alexander's meticulously guarded heart. He found himself happier, more fulfilled than he had ever been, the gnawing emptiness that had once defined his existence slowly receding, replaced by a quiet sense of contentment. The world, once a battlefield of corporate conquest, now held moments of unexpected joy, shared glances, and whispered confidences that felt more valuable than any acquisition. Lily, too, began to fall for him, drawn to the unexpected kindness that lay beneath his formidable exterior. She saw past the billionaire, past the intimidating reputation, to the man who occasionally stumbled over his words when trying to express a personal thought, the man who remembered her sister's favorite flowers, the man whose eyes held a flicker of vulnerability she found profoundly endearing. Yet, despite the blossoming affection, a persistent unease gnawed at Lily. The vast chasm of their class difference loomed large in her mind, an ever-present reminder that their worlds were fundamentally disparate. She feared it was all too good to be true, a fleeting dream that would inevitably shatter, leaving her more broken than before. Her logical mind, honed by years of struggle and self-reliance, cautioned her against such soaring hopes. Alexander, for his part, was blissfully unaware of her internal turmoil, his focus consumed by the exhilarating new sensations she evoked within him. He was opening up, truly opening up, for the first time in decades, and the sheer novelty of it was intoxicating. However, the fragile peace that had settled over Alexander's life was destined to be short-lived. A ghost from his past, a rival named Marcus Thorne, resurfaced with an ominous presence. Marcus was a man Alexander deeply distrusted, a figure intertwined with the very betrayal that had hardened his heart years ago. Alexander had always viewed Marcus as a venomous opportunist, a sentiment now rekindled with a chilling intensity. Marcus, with his keen predatory instincts, immediately recognized Lily as Alexander's new, glaring weakness. He saw the subtle changes in Alexander's demeanor, the softened edges, the occasional, almost imperceptible smile that now graced his lips. To Marcus, Lily was not a person, but a chink in Alexander's formidable armor, an opportunity to exploit. He began his insidious campaign subtly, planting seeds of doubt in Lily's mind about Alexander's true intentions. He would approach her casually in the corridors, offering seemingly innocuous compliments laced with barbed innuendo. "Alexander's so generous, isn't he?" Marcus might remark, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. "He loves a good project, especially one he can shape and mold." He subtly suggested that Alexander was merely playing a game, manipulating her, using her for some unseen agenda. He painted Alexander as a master strategist, a man who viewed people as pawns in his grand designs, incapable of genuine emotion. Lily's anxieties, already heightened by her own insecurities regarding their disparate worlds, were inflamed by Marcus's poisonous whispers. She started questioning Alexander's motives, scrutinizing his every action, searching for the hidden agenda Marcus implied. She noticed his occasional secretive phone calls, the way his voice would drop to a near whisper, his sudden, unexplained absences from the office. What she didn't know was that Alexander was deep in negotiations for a crucial new business deal, a complex acquisition that required absolute discretion and demanded his undivided attention. He was protecting her, in his own way, from the cutthroat realities of his corporate world, shielding her from the intense pressure and relentless scrutiny that came with such high-stakes ventures. But to Lily, fueled by Marcus's insidious suggestions, these actions felt clandestine, suspicious, confirming her deepest fears. Then came the misunderstanding that shattered her fragile trust. One afternoon, as she passed Alexander's partially open office door, she overheard a snippet of his conversation. His voice, usually so controlled, was laced with an unfamiliar harshness. "I've invested too much in this," he was saying, his tone sharp and uncompromising. "And I won't have it jeopardized. Once the deal is done, I'll cut ties, no matter the cost." Lily froze, her heart plummeting to her stomach. Her mind, already primed by Marcus's manipulations, immediately connected his words to her. She believed he was talking about her, about their relationship, planning to discard her once her sister was well, once her usefulness had expired. The warmth that had blossomed within her turned to ice. The hope she had dared to nurture curdled into bitter disappointment. The carefully constructed world she had begun to build with Alexander crumbled around her, leaving her exposed and heartbroken. The dark shadow of mistrust had finally descended, threatening to engulf their blossoming relationship entirely. The words echoed in Lily's mind, a cruel, definitive pronouncement of her worst fears. She felt a searing pain, a betrayal so profound it stole her breath. Turning abruptly from the half-open door, she fled the corridor, each step a desperate attempt to outrun the crushing weight of Alexander's perceived deceit. Her heart, which had dared to open to him, now felt like a shattered vessel, bleeding sorrow into every corner of her being. The carefully constructed image of Alexander, the kind man beneath the formidable exterior, disintegrated, revealing what she now believed to be his true, calculating nature. The next morning, the confrontation was inevitable, a storm brewing within Lily that finally broke. She found Alexander in his office, his usual aura of composed power now seeming like a mask for his callousness. Her voice, trembling with a mixture of anger and profound hurt, cut through the quiet air. "How could you?" she demanded, her eyes blazing with unshed tears. "How could you pretend to care, to build this illusion, only to plan to cut ties once my sister was well? Was I just another investment for you, Alexander? Something to be discarded, no matter the cost?" Alexander, caught completely off guard, stared at her, his expression a mixture of confusion and genuine shock. The accusations, hurled with such raw pain, struck him like physical blows. He tried to reach for her, to explain, but his hand hung in the air, suspended by her fierce glare. "Lily, what are you talking about? What illusion? What ties?" He stammered, his mind racing to comprehend the source of her distress. His usual guardedness, his ingrained habit of protecting his emotions, now worked against him, making him seem evasive, even guilty. He struggled to articulate the complex business deal that had consumed his attention, the very deal he believed he was shielding her from. But the words caught in his throat, tangled with a sudden, overwhelming sense of misunderstanding. Lily, however, was past listening. Fueled by Marcus's insidious lies and her own deep-seated fears of being used and discarded, she refused to hear any explanation. His hesitation, his inability to immediately reassure her, only confirmed her suspicions. "Don't bother, Alexander," she choked out, a single tear finally escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. "I understand perfectly now. I was a project, a charity case, something to amuse you until you grew bored. Well, I'm done being your project." With a final defiant glare, she delivered her ultimatum. "I quit. I can't work for someone who sees people as disposable assets." And with that, she turned and walked out of his office, out of his company, severing every tie with the man she had allowed herself to fall in love with. The door clicked shut behind her, a sound that echoed the finality of her departure, leaving Alexander standing alone in a silence that felt heavier than any reproach. He was devastated, a sensation he hadn't truly experienced since the crushing betrayal that had hardened his heart years ago. The pain was sharp, visceral, a gaping wound in his carefully constructed emotional armor. He finally understood the depth of his feelings for Lily, the profound impact she had made on his life, now that she was gone. The emptiness she left behind was a stark contrast to the quiet fulfillment she had brought. His mind, usually a fortress of logic and strategic thought, was now a whirlwind of confusion and raw emotion. As the initial shock subsided, a cold, hard suspicion began to form. Marcus. It had to be Marcus. The timing, the nature of Lily's accusations, the way her words had mirrored Marcus's sneering insinuations, it all clicked into place with chilling clarity. Alexander's analytical brain, though clouded by grief, began to work. He immediately set his most trusted investigators to work, not just on his business deal, but on Marcus himself, looking for any connection, any hint of manipulation. The evidence came swiftly and damningly. His team uncovered a trail of Marcus's subtle machinations. The carefully planted rumors, the anonymous calls to Lily's friends, the seemingly innocent conversations that were anything but. They also confirmed Marcus's more direct interference in his current business deal, a calculated attempt to sabotage the acquisition and weaken Alexander's position in the market. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, revealing a web of deceit far more intricate than Alexander had initially imagined. Then, a chilling discovery. Among the files detailing Marcus's corporate espionage, there were veiled references, cryptic notes, and old communications that hinted at something deeper, something from the past. A memory resurfaced, sharp and painful, of his sister, Helena. Years ago, a significant portion of her inheritance, a legacy meant to secure her future, had vanished, entangled in a complex financial scheme that his father had dismissed as an unfortunate, unavoidable loss. Alexander had always suspected foul play, but his father, resolute in his desire to protect the family name, had quashed any further investigation, blaming a shift in the market. Now, the evidence pointed directly to Marcus. It wasn't just corporate sabotage. It was a deep-seated, personal vendetta, fueled by jealousy and a ruthless desire to diminish Alexander's family. Marcus, consumed by envy over Alexander's success and his family's wealth, had orchestrated the scheme that had stripped Helena of her rightful inheritance, leaving her vulnerable and estranged from the family. This betrayal had been the catalyst for Alexander's own hardening, his retreat into a world of transactional relationships. Alexander was consumed by a cold, righteous anger. The past and present betrayals intertwined, revealing a deeper, more sinister plot that stretched back years. Marcus hadn't just hurt him, he had hurt his sister, and now he had hurt Lily, the one person who had managed to break through his defenses. He realized with absolute certainty that he had to clear his name, not just for his reputation, but for Lily. He had to expose Marcus, not just to protect his company, but to reclaim the trust he had so inadvertently lost. The game had changed. It was no longer just about business. It was about justice, redemption, and the fierce, unyielding desire to protect the woman he loved. Alexander, his jaw set with a grim determination, knew there was only one path forward. He had to expose Marcus, not just for the corporate treachery that threatened his empire, but for the insidious, emotional manipulation that had poisoned his burgeoning connection with Lily. The raw anger that had simmered beneath his composed exterior now crystallized into a laser-focused resolve. He would fight for the truth, and in doing so, he would fight to win back Lily's trust, a prize far more valuable than any business acquisition. His first step was meticulous and relentless. He marshaled his best legal and investigative teams, not just to confirm Marcus's machinations, but to gather an irrefutable mountain of evidence. Forged documents, carefully doctored emails, intercepted communications, and damning financial records detailing the pilfering of Helena's inheritance were all painstakingly compiled. Each piece was a shard of truth, ready to be wielded against Marcus's carefully constructed facade of respectability. Alexander wasn't just planning to discredit Marcus, he intended to dismantle him entirely, publicly, and irrevocably. He envisioned a confrontation so decisive, so undeniable, that Marcus would have nowhere left to hide. This wasn't merely about damage control, it was a high-stakes move, a calculated gamble that could either secure his future or unravel everything he had built. Meanwhile, Lily found herself adrift, back in the familiar, suffocating rhythm of her old life, but now burdened by a profound and aching emptiness. The brief, intoxicating glimpse into Alexander's world, the unexpected kindness, the burgeoning hope, had all been snatched away, leaving a gaping wound in her heart. She worked her shifts, her movements automatic, her smile a practiced facade for customers. Each day brought a fresh wave of despair, amplified by her sister's worsening condition. The medical bills, which had once seemed manageable with Alexander's mentorship, now loomed like insurmountable mountains. Her spirit, once so resilient, felt fragile, teetering on the brink of collapse. She had trusted, she had hoped, and she felt she had been foolishly deceived. Then, whispers began to reach her ears, fragments of conversations from former colleagues, hushed tones in the break room, rumors of Alexander's furious investigation, of Marcus's name being bandied about in connection with corporate espionage, and something vaguely sinister. A small, insidious seed of doubt about her own judgment began to take root. Had she been too quick to condemn? Had her fear and insecurity clouded her perception? Marcus's initial approach to her, his feigned sympathy, his smooth, convincing lies, replayed in her mind, now tinged with a new, unsettling suspicion. He had been too eager, too precise in his accusations against Alexander. One evening, a plain, unmarked package arrived at her meager apartment. Inside, nestled among layers of tissue paper, was a small encrypted USB drive and a short, typewritten note. Truth is often obscured by shadows. Look deeper. The note was unsigned, but Lily instinctively knew it was from Alexander. Her hands trembled as she inserted the drive into her old, sputtering laptop. The files that unfolded before her eyes were initially confusing, complex financial spreadsheets and legal documents. But as she delved deeper, connecting the dots, a horrifying picture began to emerge. Dates, names, transactions, they all pointed to Marcus. She saw the carefully manipulated accounts, the shell corporations, the systematic erosion of funds that mirrored the story she had heard about Alexander's sister. A cold dread settled in her stomach, quickly followed by a surge of anger. She had been played, a pawn in Marcus's cruel game. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. Her accusations against Alexander, her heartbroken departure had been based on a foundation of lies. The memory of his shocked, pained expression when she had confronted him now haunted her. She remembered Marcus's subtle cues, his calculated remarks, his uncanny ability to confirm her darkest fears. He hadn't been a concerned confidant, he had been a predator, carefully orchestrating her distress. The truth, when it finally dawned on her, was a bitter pill to swallow. She had misjudged Alexander, and in doing so, she had hurt him deeply. Unaware of the package Alexander had sent, or Lily's dawning realization, Alexander was meticulously preparing for the ultimate showdown. He had scheduled an emergency board meeting, ostensibly to discuss the impending acquisition. But his true agenda was far more personal. He knew the risks. Exposing Marcus would not only cause a massive scandal, but it could destabilize his company, damage his reputation, and potentially jeopardize the very deal he had been fighting for. His advisors had urged caution, suggesting a less public, more controlled approach. But Alexander was beyond caution. He had seen the pain in Lily's eyes, the echoes of his own past betrayal. He understood now that winning Lily back, clearing his name in her eyes, was more important than any business deal, any financial gain. His wealth and power meant nothing without integrity, and without the possibility of genuine connection. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation with everything on the line: his company, his reputation, in the fragile hope of reconciliation with the woman who had, against all odds, managed to thaw his frozen heart. The air crackled with unspoken tension, the silence before the storm. The boardroom hummed with a nervous energy, a stark contrast to the usual composed atmosphere of high-stakes corporate meetings. Alexander stood at the head of the polished mahogany table, his gaze sweeping across the faces of the board members, each one a pillar of the financial world. He held himself with an unyielding resolve, a man prepared for battle. Marcus, seated opposite him, maintained a facade of calm, a slight, almost imperceptible smirk playing on his lips, betraying his inner confidence. The agenda, officially, was the crucial acquisition deal, but everyone present sensed the underlying tension, the unspoken conflict bubbling beneath the surface. Alexander began, his voice clear and resonant, laying out the intricate details of the proposed acquisition. He spoke of projections, market shares, and strategic advantages, but his words carried a double meaning, a subtle undercurrent that hinted at more than just business. As he concluded his presentation, he paused, his eyes narrowing slightly as he met Marcus's gaze. "However," Alexander stated, his tone shifting, "there are certain irregularities that have come to my attention, which directly impact the integrity of this acquisition, and indeed, the integrity of this board." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Marcus shifted in his seat, his smirk faltering for a fraction of a second. He attempted to interject, "Alexander, I believe we should stick to the agenda. These irregularities sound like unsubstantiated rumors." Alexander held up a hand, silencing him. "On the contrary, Marcus, these are not rumors, these are facts, meticulously documented." He then proceeded to present his case not against the acquisition, but against Marcus himself. He displayed forged documents on the large screen, highlighting discrepancies in financial reports and tracing illicit transactions through a labyrinth of shell companies. He played snippets of intercepted communications, voices that were unmistakably Marcus's, discussing strategies to manipulate market data and undermine the company's stock. Each piece of evidence was damning, meticulously organized, and irrefutable. The board members exchanged shocked glances, their faces etched with disbelief and growing anger. Marcus, his composure finally cracking, rose from his seat, his face contorted with fury. "This is preposterous, a smear campaign. Alexander, you're deranged. You're trying to discredit me because I exposed your personal indiscretions." He tried to turn the tables, to paint Alexander as a man consumed by a vendetta, incapable of rational thought. But his words lacked conviction, overshadowed by the weight of the evidence. Just as Marcus's voice reached a crescendo, the heavy boardroom doors swung open. All heads turned to see Lily standing there, her presence an unexpected jolt in the highly charged atmosphere. She was dressed simply, but her eyes held a fierce determination, a quiet strength that commanded attention. In her hand, she clutched a small encrypted USB drive, the one Alexander had sent her, now containing her own findings. Alexander's eyes met hers, a silent apology and a profound understanding passing between them. He saw the truth in her gaze, the realization that had dawned upon her as she pieced together Marcus's deceit. Lily walked purposefully to the table, her steps echoing in the sudden silence. "Mr. Thorne," she began, her voice clear despite a slight tremor, addressing the chairman of the board, "I can corroborate Mr. Sterling's claims. Marcus, he manipulated me. He fed me lies about Alexander, made me believe he was using me, all to create a rift and weaken Alexander's position. She recounted Marcus's insidious tactics, the carefully crafted narratives, the seeds of doubt he had planted. Her testimony, delivered with raw emotion and unwavering sincerity, added a crucial human element to Alexander's cold, hard evidence. It confirmed Marcus's pattern of deception, not just in business, but in personal relationships. Cornered, exposed, and utterly defeated, Marcus's facade crumbled entirely. He lashed out, his voice raw with bitter resentment, abandoning all pretense. "Yes, you're right. I did it. All of it. Because he always had everything. The trust fund, the company, the respect, while I, his own cousin, was always in his shadow. It was my inheritance he took. My family name he tarnished when his father ruined ours, and his sister. She deserved what she got for being so naive." The words hung heavy in the air, a chilling confession that confirmed the depth of his malice. The board members gasped, horrified by the revelation of his long-held grudge and the extent of his vindictiveness. The chairman, a man of few words but immense authority, slammed his gavel down. "Marcus, your treachery is beyond measure. The board votes unanimously to remove you from all positions immediately. Legal proceedings will be initiated for corporate espionage and fraud. And as for your confession regarding Alexander's sister, that will be handled by the appropriate authorities." The room erupted into a controlled chaos of whispers and shocked exclamations. Alexander watched Marcus being escorted out, a complex mix of emotions swirling within him: anger, vindication, but also a profound sadness for the wasted potential of a man consumed by envy. As the doors closed behind Marcus, a heavy silence descended once more. Alexander then turned to Lily, his expression softening, a silent apology and a deep, unspoken understanding passing between them. The emotional weight of the truth, finally revealed, felt like a heavy burden lifted, replaced by a fragile sense of hope. The storm had passed, but the aftermath of its fury still lingered, promising a long road to healing and reconciliation. The immediate aftermath of the board meeting left a palpable stillness in the opulent boardroom, a stark contrast to the preceding storm of accusations and revelations. Alexander, his gaze fixed on Lily, felt the tension finally drain from his shoulders. The air, once thick with betrayal and deceit, now held the delicate promise of something new, something profoundly real. He extended a hand towards her, a gesture not of command, but of quiet invitation, and she took it, her fingers intertwining with his in a comforting warmth. They retreated to a quieter corner of the vast building, a secluded lounge bathed in the soft glow of twilight, filtering through tall windows. Here, away from the prying eyes and hushed whispers, they finally spoke, their voices low, almost reverent. Alexander began, his words carefully chosen, stripping away the layers of his guarded past. He spoke of his parents' demanding expectations, of the cutthroat world he was born into, where emotions were seen as weaknesses and trust a dangerous gamble. He recounted the devastating blow of his sister's loss, not to death, but to the machinations of his own family, a wound that had festered and hardened his heart, building impenetrable walls around him. He confessed his fears, the constant anxiety of being targeted for his wealth, the paranoia that had made him push everyone away. He admitted his initial skepticism towards Lily, seeing her as another potential opportunist, a reflection of the cynical lens through which he viewed the world. Yet, he spoke of the unexpected jolt of her touch, the genuine warmth in her eyes that had begun to chip away at his armor, piece by agonizing piece. Lily listened, her heart aching for the lonely boy he must have been, the man forced to grow up too fast in a world devoid of true affection. When he finished, she reached out, her hand gently cupping his cheek. Her own voice, soft yet firm, carried a profound apology. She expressed her deep regret for her distrust, for allowing Marcus's venomous lies to poison her perception of him. She acknowledged the immense pressure he lived under, the constant scrutiny, and understood now why he had been so guarded. She saw the true Alexander, not the ruthless millionaire, but a man deeply scarred by betrayal, yearning for connection. Their eyes met, and in that shared glance, an unspoken acknowledgement of their profound feelings for each other blossomed, no longer hidden beneath layers of misunderstanding or societal expectations. It was a silent vow, a commitment to rebuild, to heal, and to explore the burgeoning love that had miraculously found a way to thrive amidst chaos. With the immediate crisis averted, Alexander's first priority was to make amends, not just to Lily, but to the lingering shadows of his past. He swiftly arranged for his sister, Eleanor, to receive the best medical treatment available, ensuring her full recovery from the illness that had plagued her for years. It was a silent act of redemption, a way to mend a family rift that had haunted him for decades. Eleanor, once a distant memory, was now a tangible presence, and the prospect of her healing filled a void Alexander hadn't realized was so vast. Inspired by Lily's unwavering compassion and resilience, Alexander began to re-evaluate his own philanthropic endeavors. The charity he had once funded reluctantly, seeing it merely as a public relations necessity, now became a passion project. He actively participated, dedicating his time and considerable resources to its cause. He met the people it served, heard their stories, and witnessed firsthand the profound impact of genuine kindness. He used his immense wealth as a force for good, transforming it from a symbol of his isolation into an instrument of profound change, a testament to the quiet revolution Lily had ignited within him. Lily, meanwhile, found her own path. With her sister healthy and thriving, the crushing burden of medical debt lifted, she was free to pursue her own dreams. She didn't return to Alexander's company as a mentee. Instead, she chose a different direction, one that resonated deeply with her compassionate spirit. She explored opportunities to help other families facing similar struggles, leveraging her unique experiences to advocate for those less fortunate. Their relationship continued to blossom, evolving into a beautiful tapestry woven with threads of trust, mutual respect, and an ever-deepening love. Alexander, once a fortress of solitude, learned to open up, to share his vulnerabilities, to truly connect with people on an emotional level. The transformation was profound, not just in his personal life, but in the very essence of his being. He had found redemption, not solely in the arms of the woman he loved, but in the profound transformation of his life's purpose, discovering that true wealth lay not in what he possessed, but in the love he shared and the good he created. Months melted into a year, each day solidifying the profound transformation Alexander and Lily had undergone. Their love story, once fraught with misunderstanding and betrayal, had matured into an unbreakable bond, a testament to resilience and the extraordinary power of genuine connection. Alexander, the once isolated millionaire, now moved through life with a quiet confidence, his eyes reflecting a warmth that had been absent for so long. Lily, no longer burdened by the weight of her sister's illness, radiated a vibrant energy, her compassion now channeled into empowering others. Eleanor, Alexander's sister, was not only healthy but thriving. Her recovery had been complete, a miracle Alexander attributed entirely to Lily's inadvertent intervention. She had re-engaged with life, finding purpose in volunteering at a local community center, her past struggles giving her a unique empathy for those in need. Her renewed presence in Alexander's life was a constant source of joy, a tangible reminder of the second chances life offered. The once fractured family had begun to heal, nurtured by the unwavering love that now enveloped Alexander. Alexander's company had also undergone a profound metamorphosis. It was still a titan in its industry, but its foundations were now built on principles of ethical practice and social responsibility. He had spearheaded initiatives that prioritized employee well-being, sustainability, and community engagement. The cold, calculated pursuit of profit had been replaced by a vision that balanced ambition with integrity, proving that success and heart were not mutually exclusive. He was still a powerful businessman, his decisions shaping markets and impacting countless lives, but now every step was guided by a newfound wisdom, a deep understanding that true leadership extended beyond the boardroom. He had learned that influence, when wielded with compassion, could be a formidable force for good. Lily, inspired by her own journey and Alexander's evolving perspective, had embarked on her own entrepreneurial venture. She had established a non-profit organization dedicated to assisting families navigating complex medical systems, providing guidance, resources, and emotional support. Her small business, built from the ground up with unwavering determination, had quickly become a beacon of hope for many. She had found her calling, her purpose intertwined with the very struggles she had once endured. Her work was a daily reminder of the impact one person could have, a ripple effect of kindness that transformed lives. She had discovered that true fulfillment lay not in escaping her past, but in leveraging it to build a better future for others. One crisp autumn afternoon, Alexander found them walking through a sun-dappled park, a place far removed from the gilded cages of his former life. The air was filled with the scent of fallen leaves and the distant laughter of children. It was a simple, uncomplicated moment, yet it held more meaning than any opulent gala he had ever attended. He looked at Lily, her profile etched against the golden light, and a profound sense of peace settled over him. He realized then that the true meaning of wealth was not measured in assets or empires, but in the richness of human connection, the warmth of shared laughter, and the quiet comfort of unconditional love. He stopped, gently turning her to face him. Her eyes, so full of life and compassion, met his. There were no grand gestures, no extravagant displays, just a raw, honest sincerity in his gaze. He reached into his pocket, producing a simple silver ring, elegant in its understated beauty. "Lily," he began, his voice surprisingly steady, "you walked into my life by mistake, and you turned my entire world right side up. You taught me what it means to truly live, to truly love. You showed me that the greatest riches are found in the heart. Will you do me the honor of spending the rest of your life teaching me, loving me, and building a future with me?" Tears welled in Lily's eyes, a mixture of joy and disbelief. This was the man who had once been an enigma, a symbol of everything she wasn't. Now he was her partner, her confidant, her greatest love. She saw past the millionaire, past the powerful exterior, to the tender, redeemed soul within. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, a tangible promise of their shared future. They embraced, a long, tender hug that spoke volumes of their journey, their struggles, and their ultimate triumph. Hand in hand, Alexander and Lily continued their walk, their steps light, their hearts full. The path ahead was uncertain, as all futures are, but they faced it together, two souls irrevocably intertwined, ready to embrace whatever life had in store, knowing that with genuine love and purpose as their compass, they could conquer anything. Their story was a testament to the transformative power of a single, unexpected embrace, a reminder that true love could bloom in the most unlikely of places, forever changing the trajectory of a life.